All right, we're live.
Good morning.
Why'd you want to kiss me when we started?
I don't know. It just came over me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I love it when you're overwhelmed by me.
Well, this
Yes.
is the How to Submit to Your Wife Day on the Submission Series
Oh,
podcast,
so
right?
you're just buttering me up.
Why not?
That's what's going on.
Of
Better be real butter.
course. Absolutely.
None of that. I can't believe it's not butter stuff.
So we're here in
Oh, that's hot.
what's coming out one of our favorite spots. Great spot.
Yep, we're down in Victoria.
Beautiful
And
background. There's a lake in the background. One of our 10,000 here in Minnesota.
this was 8,561.
Good.
Yeah.
Now we know. So they obviously counted from the top down then.
Sure.
Yeah. Because there are fewer lakes as you go further south. So,
Yep.
yeah.
So this is the Jon and Tara podcast. I'm Jon. This is Tara.
Tara.
Yeah. And we are talking about, so we've done a submission series, and the first one we did was submitting to your relationship, which I think was very equanimable of us.
Yes.
And then we did a submitting to your husband, and now we're doing submitting to your wife.
Which, interestingly, this was not all planned out. Like, we just started, hey, let's do a submission series. And I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. I'm all about it.
Yeah, we're gonna
We
do
gotta,
arm wrenches, and we're gonna do figure
Yeah.
four locks, and we're gonna do head grabs, and
it's
we're
all
gonna
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get them to submit. Get them.
I submit.
So, yeah, but it wasn't like pre-planned. We weren't like, here's
No,
number one,
no.
2, 3, and so it actually just kind of happened that
And
relationship,
it was
submitting
my
to your
idea.
relationship.
It was my idea to do submitting to your wife, the husband
Yes.
submitting to your wife, because that happens after I think like 22 and a half years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, tell me about it.
because we've been married now
You're telling me you weren't submitted all
22 and 3/4 years.
along?
Well, no, I want you to describe first how you think I submit. It can be the process, it can be instances, it can be anything you can think of in the moment. We didn't plan this, so Tara
Yeah,
is on the spot.
I'm on the spot. Well, I'm trying to think of kind of how we have defined submission. And in our previous talks, it was more or less putting the priority of that person or our relationship, making that priority. And so to me, it is not. And so when you put something as a priority, you're automatically putting it on a higher level, a hierarchy.
You're putting a level of importance on it, yeah.
And a level of importance. But there's also in submission, there is that, ironically, the martial arts term as well.
That's why we're playing around.
Right.
Yeah.
And wrestling, of course. And when you're submitting, you're saying you you got me, essentially, in a way. And so I think that's why it gets such a bad rap.
Well, boys know all about it because we play Uncle. We play the game of Uncle. So we're going to play Knucks, right?
Yeah.
Boys will play Knucks like that,
Okay.
right? And then you got to get me, right?
Yep. I'm not going to play this game with you. I've pre-submitted.
But boys understand that because they play those games. They wrestle. They fight. They play guns outside with sticks, and that kind of thing. And they'll go pew pew, and the first one to go pew pew, the other one has to go oh, yeah. So
which we saw a great Instagram video the other day of a guy who apparently trained his cats to do that.
Yeah, but he was doing the Hadouken. He was throwing energy at them.
Well, that's how the cats got it.
And they were falling over. That was really funny. That was really funny. Yeah, look it up on Hadouken cat falls over. That's how you'd find it.
Okay, good.
I don't even know what it was called, but that'll bring it up.
Okay.
So boys play these games when they're young. So I fully get it. I fully understand.
Whereas
I'm trying to figure out if you do.
Well, I think this is maybe like the crux of why.
After 22 years of marriage, this is the first time we talked about this.
So it's really interesting, when you go back to childhood, I think, we're all basic human beings then.
Really?
And I think you learn at a fundamental level who we are as individuals and as in the sexes and,
I view childhood as gravitating towards things that interest you.
There's that too.
I don't view childhood as fundamentally learning who you are.
Did I say fundamentally learning?
Yeah.
No, I said fundamentally
understanding who you are, or
Maybe I did.
Yeah,
But well, looking
it's
back,
recorded.
looking back,
People are rewinding it now. They're like,
I mean more in retrospect.
yeah,
So when not in the time that you're a child learning who you are, I mean as an adult, looking back, who I was as a kid gives you huge hints of who you are at the core of your being, who you want to be, what's kind of written in your stars, so to speak. And so,
wow. Being a kid is all metaphysical.
right. And so when I think back to, uh, you brought up boys and how boys behave, and so, and they're innately, you're playing these games. They're basically figuring out the hierarchy, which also gets a bad rap these days. But if you don't have order, you're gonna have a chaos.
Well, with boys, it's totally who is stronger, faster, smarter, quicker wit, and then you get categorized, right? So if you're smart with a quick wit, you might be the class clown, right? If you are, if you're the strongest and fastest one, people will say, "Oh, you should play football. You should be a wrestler." That kind of stuff, right? If you're the most coordinated, they might also say you should play football, basketball, or baseball, right?
Yeah.
Then that's where you're probably talking about. You kind of find out who you are because of what other people think of you.
Going back, and I'm trying to progress. I'm trying to go back to reflect, and then get a definition of submission, and then answer your question, hopefully,
About how I've submitted.
about how I've seen you submit. And so first of all, you brought up boys, and they essentially test how to make testing the hierarchy, right? Testing their skills. Girls, I think, are very different. I think there's a desire for hierarchy. Like, I'm gonna be the mom, you're the kids, and this, don't get on me. This is like so typical. Girls, you little girls do this.
No one's getting on you except me. So
okay,
settle down.
Right. John will take care of
That's
that.
right.
We'll make you submit.
That's
So,
right.
but there is the desire for hierarchy, but how girls go about it is usually like, okay, I'm going to be the mom, or I'm going to be
They're setting up the roles.
They're setting up the roles.
Okay. Whereas boys are just like, I'm faster than you.
Yeah. Or
not. They prove it. They prove it
without knowing, maybe. But then there might be a fight among girls who are like, no, I want to be that, and then you get into a different kind of struggle than what the boys go through. It's more like,
and now the girls are all saying, no, I want to be a boy.
so there's that. I think there's, first of all, how boys and girls, and I'm going to say boys and girls because we're at the core, we're boys and girls, deal with it differently. And boys are like, well, let's figure out who's boss, and the girls are like, I'm boss, or I'm boss, you can't be boss, I want to be boss.
Well,
too.
girls don't do it
And
physically, traditionally. They argue it out.
They'll argue it out. They'll go cry to mom.
Whoever's domineering and whoever's willing to go nastiest is the boss usually.
And then it does get physical, but it's a different kind of physical for, well, like,
I don't think
it get pretty physical.
Well, they'll say girls are fighting. There's street fights and there's brawls and stuff like that. But that's not it.
About little girls.
Yeah. So it is. It's whoever is willing, whoever is nastiest, the other girls will submit to.
Yeah. So okay, so we're getting some core things taken.
So we can't have any female leaders because it's always who's nastiest.
Well, we see it in business as well. It happens, and I've even had women say, "I didn't realize you had so much power." And I'm like, I'm not aiming for power. I'm just trying to get shite done.
No, it was organization you needed.
It was,
and the person you were talking to wasn't willing to be organized in any fashion or manner and wanted to say, this is the way I want to do it. And you said, no, we have to do it this way. And it was an organized way. And it wasn't power.
No, but they perceived it as power.
Well, you did have the authority to say no because you control yourself. So you were like, well, I don't want to work with this.
But I also don't have an issue with the word power.
Right.
Like this woman had an issue with the word power.
That's because she went to college.
Whatever the case, the environment that she lived in, definitely there is this kind of mindset. So getting to how you have submitted to me, I think is, first of all, so I just want to establish that I think innately submission is different to men and women.
My Yeti mug is keeping my coffee way too hot,
Oh,
even
man.
with the top off. Dang it, Yeti. All right, go ahead.
Sorry for the air conditioner noise. I
That's an
forgot
advertisement for Yeti, although they're not a sponsor.
those.
They're not an official sponsor, but
They're pretty awesome. We're gonna try.
we have lots of Yeti products. They could be a sponsor.
Next time we should definitely bring our chairs and set up the tripod like you said.
It's not
Yes,
going to be
it'll
nothing.
It'll be away from that sound.
Yeah, it won't be bad.
So I'm trying to get to answering your question. How do I see that you've submitted to me? And so I think I think how you've submitted to me is very different than how I submit to you. And I think it's kind of, this is hard to answer
Everybody's
because
dying to know. How have I submitted to you? Just one example or one phrase, or have I ever done the dishes?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Have I ever
But I
cooked a meal?
But I don't
Let's
know
just start
how
there.
that-
Let's just
okay.
start there.
Yes, you've cooked
Okay.
many meals, done many dishes. You've vacuumed. You've done other chores.
With a really high-powered vacuum.
The great. You make sure we have great equipment. So I think for me, see, what I consider you submitting to me is considering me. Because when I submit to you
Being
and
considerate.
I say that when I submit to you and I'm putting you in the driver's seat, and it is putting, it's like in my mind I'm acknowledging Jon is in the driver's seat here, and I might say the map says, maps say go left
Map
here.
says get off on exit 3B.
Yeah, I might be helping, but
And I go to 4B, 4A.
Yep.
And you go, you say, our turn was back there. And I go, we'll be fine. You don't argue, you don't yell, you don't scream, you don't tell me I'm wrong, you don't tell me I can't follow directions, you don't tell me I don't understand driving or navigation.
I'm not physically or metaphorically grabbing the wheel. I'm,
I can't even imagine
not
that.
shifting the gears, but I think the metaphor is helpful.
Oh, from the passenger seat? Or
yeah. And so
that wouldn't happen.
Put
your hand up. I'm gonna put your hand out. Your hand would get to about here.
Right. So it's a great metaphor because it happens a lot in life where it might even be a business situation. A person has not submitted to who's actually in the driver's seat of business, and they're trying to constantly do that, and you're distracting the driver all the time and taking their attention away from what they need to be doing to keep everybody safe in the vehicle and get where you're going.
Yeah.
And so I think, first of all, with me actually putting you in my mind, acknowledging you in the driver's seat, being clear on what my role is, then in this analogy, you've been like, hey, Tara, can you let me know when the next turn is coming up, or I can't see this here, or whatever.
So you're saying when you submit to me, I can submit to you.
Yeah, it's probably
you acknowledged originally when we first got together. You acknowledged my authority in things that I knew about and things that I understood, and that's just common sense. When somebody knows, you're not going to take let's take a finished carpenter or a tool maker, which are high levels in their fields. As a basic machinist, you're not going to tell the tool maker how something should be done, especially if you just got into the field. You're literally called an apprentice at that point. And so you need to learn from the master with the wisdom. And there were things, we met in martial arts, and I was your martial art instructor. And we listened back to previous podcasts to understand how that worked. Because when you say it like that, it just sounds like, oh yeah, here's one of those guys, right? And I knew a lot of those guys, but no, I wasn't one of those guys. But if you come walking into the martial arts school and you've never taken martial arts, and you start going, well, I saw this movie and this is how you do it, and I'll show you. You're gonna be in a lot of heat real quick, or you go into a boxing gym and you take the top boxer and you say, I watched Floyd Mayweather a couple times. I'm gonna do a few things to you. They're in a boxing gym, they'll just knock you out. In a martial arts gym, they don't. Usually they submit you. But and I'm not talking even about jujitsu. I'm talking about any martial artist. They'll do stuff to you and then they'll go, have you had enough? In a boxing gym, they'll just, you know, crack you and knock you out and laugh at you.
Mhm.
Whole different attitude. So you submitted to authority at first. And then when we got into our relationship a little ways, I make the joke that you tried to wear my pants because you were bossy. You were Little Miss Bossy Pants when we got together. And I would say, guys, here's how you get your woman to submit. I would say to you, I love you. However, this is something I can't live with. And
Mhm.
I want to be with you. However, this behavior needs to quit. Needs to be stopped. You need to get it under control. And I saw where you came from. You came from a very feminist backed, based raising. Your mom was very much about, always be a strong woman and all this kind of stuff. And so I saw it because I was around your family. And so I knew that I wasn't just going to yell at you or tell you you're stupid or anything like that because I was going to turn up the furnace. They would get hotter and you would start to boil and that kind of stuff because that's what happens when I'll use a modern word that I don't like to use. That's what happens when you trigger a feminist. That'll be a clip.
Well, you also were invested. You were interested in the relationship, wanted to continue with me. So
I
you
was
used
in love with you.
well.
I
There
still
you
am.
go.
I still am. Even
And
more
so
now.
so you were very choosy about your words, and
Yeah.
you started with "I love you."
Mhm.
But you knew your boundaries. This is not how I can't
Yeah.
have a relationship like this.
A lot of these young people talking about submission have never been married. It's very interesting if you are on YouTube perusing the the pop topics. There's a lot of people talking about submission. There's a lot of people talking about how men and women have to work together in a hierarchy of the man being the boss and the man can do anything he wants and the man this and the man that and the man this and the man that and the man will not be a man without a woman. You got to know, right? And if you don't have a real woman at your side, if you don't have a real woman that is a real feminine woman, and that doesn't mean weak. Femininity has strength. I mean, women have children. I can't even imagine that. I yeah. So there's a lot of things I want to say, but I'm not going to. If you are not playing your role, you don't get the other half. You don't get the yin without the yang, and if you're not fully yang, you don't get the yin. And so or other way around. I don't know which one is masculine and feminine.
Well,
Doesn't
essentially they balance each other out, though. I mean,
they do eventually?
without going in.
That's where we talk about submission of me to you. That comes with a lot. This I don't recommend this because you have to be a certain guy. It's like, and you have to be a certain woman. We got engaged with like a $45 ring.
It was
Maybe
$100 before.
maybe it was 75. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a diamond. It was a stone, but not a diamond. It was a rock. I just went out and found a rock and put some duct tape around it. And then we had talked about a more expensive ring, and I remember saying to you, you have to earn that. And that is not an insult because I had to earn your trust. I had to earn your love, and vice versa. A lot of people will say that the woman is the prize, and that's what the diamond's for. And what I think is, I say that the diamond is a marketing ploy. There's you don't need a diamond, you need commitment. The diamond doesn't necessarily mean commitment. It means you might have spent some money, but money isn't a commitment to a lot of people. If you could throw down $10,000 on a ring, or 18,000 or 20 or 50 or whatever it is, then that money isn't a level of commitment. If you can't put any money on a ring, then commitment is commitment. you know, and you understood that. You got it. You were like, oh, okay. You know, you're,
Well, I wasn't too thrilled at first,
I'm sure not.
because it is, we've been encultured to that the ring is a symbol of his love, and I do think that there in it since looking into this, yes, I think it is marketing because the U.S. is one of, if not the only country that does like a diamond as the wedding ring. Most other countries just do a simple gold band.
Yeah.
And so I think there's definitely marketing involved. But it has been something that's been around for over 100 years at least. I've seen European rings as well. I like to look at estate jewelry. Just looking, it's pretty interesting. You kind of get a history context,
Especially
as
the
well.
old stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the diamond. It's a noisy morning.
Culligan. That truck shook the ground over here.
Yeah. It's full. It's in the morning.
Yeah, it's full
on
of
its
water.
way to deliveries.
Yeah.
So I think I have a hypothesis that it's also, this is speaking to all those players out there, like all these guys that are teaching these young women how to be women.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of mean to laugh.
You should.
Is that in those guys' kids? If that's all the guys there were to choose from, and I were a young woman in the market these days, yeah, they don't seem pretty trustworthy. And so I'd be vying for the biggest, fattest ring so that he would be hurting. Like if something happened, or he would, I think it is actually.
It's pretty awesome to find out what a woman really thinks.
Well, I've thought about this. I think that
Well,
there is this.
A well thought out woman. You're a very well thought out woman.
Thank you.
You're not just you're not a piece of tail trying to get the score. You're very well thought out, and so to hear you say, you would try to put a strategy behind it. The problem is you'd be playing their game, right?
Right.
So if
you're leveraging each other, and then it's a submission match. It's like it's that role, right?
Well,
it's like I got you here, nope, I got you here, I got you here.
Yeah, it's a counter for counter for counter.
Right.
So if they were the only guys, you would be much more valuable as a woman that hadn't been with other men, right? With men. So they would value you more because a guy doesn't care, most guys, I'll say a normal guy doesn't care if a woman has experience, right? But women don't play well with guys that are very naive, right? So guys that are naive and are pushovers and that kind of stuff. And so a guy needs a little bit of experience to get over that initial mushy gushy part of himself to seem like a man. Because
it's like our sensitivity drills.
Right.
I mean, you can't do it if the other person is just
floppy. Yeah.
Or it's like ballroom dancing. You have to have that solid structure.
Yeah. The guy builds the frame and the woman
also has to have a solid structure.
Has to have a frame. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And the woman follows. And somebody has to follow, and usually the guy is doing more of the stronger moves, supporting the woman, that kind of stuff. So getting back to if they were the only guys available, then you would take your time. You would be known as the woman that asks a lot of questions. You'd be known as the woman that is qualifying. God, it's like I'm being questioned by my grandma. Yeah. No, but it would be desirable because you're classy. You dress to impress, but you don't dress to accentuate. And you dress to feel comfortable. And I realize putting on skin tight clothes that squeeze you in the right places might be comfortable for some women, but you tend to be even when I met you, you're much more now, but you had that air to you that was like, I'm not just what.
I don't know if I'm going to get over the grandma comment. You didn't ask questions like my grandma.
What? No, well, as guys mature, a older woman is actually attractive. Wow. So because of the qualities, all the guys
take
are
notes.
Going to go, oh, gross, saggy this and floppy that, and whatever. Yeah. But that's
coffee breath.
That. Hey, grandma. Well, you actually are a step grandma, so. Okay, so the
So a woman becomes more attractive than
guys are entertained by light and ditzy and naive and and giggly and all that kind of stuff. They're entertained by it. But there comes a point in a guy's life where he transitions. Now I'm 53, so I've been through all these. I listen to guys that are 28.
yeah.
I laugh. I listen to guys that are 32. I laugh. I listen to guys that are 40, and I laugh. And I go, okay, guys, you're some of them at 40 are maturing into men, right?
Yeah.
But most of them are still old boys,
Yeah.
and the old boy might be attractive because he's got the body, right? He's got the six pack, he's got the muscles, he's on TRT, so he's bulging in the places, but might not be bulging in other places because he's taking too much testosterone, right? So so a guy that is aging normally, taking care of himself, aging normally, has the same thing going on upstairs where he's maturing, is more attractive. You've seen me talk to women in public. You're with me. Usually I'm cutting the quips fast. I'm witty. I'm having fun. I'm teasing them. I'm joking, and they're getting all giddy and flushed. And they might be 60 years old, and it's entertaining. They have content. They have something to come back with. It's not just like, oh, he's so smart. It's like, I really love talking to your husband. They'll say stuff like that. And because the content is better as you get older. And if you're a young guy and you don't find somebody that you can talk to, you don't find somebody that you vibe with in that way, that you can sit for 2 hours at a table and have a conversation, do some work, meet some people, smile at people walking by, that kind of stuff, you will have nothing. You will have zero, zilch, nothing. Yeah, totally. So I laugh. I go, wow. And these guys are trying to train women to have sex with them. And as they get older, they're not going to want those women that they're having sex with. And the women are going to be out. They're going to be out. They're going to be bitter. And a bitter woman does not make a good partner.
Oh, a bitter anyone does not make a good
I'm just
partner.
talking about women.
Well, yes, true.
I'm submitting to women by telling the truth. I'm telling the truth to women, and I'm telling the truth to guys.
Well, I'm gonna flip the script a little bit here.
Okay.
Not totally flip it. I'm gonna shift it a bit. That was my squeaky
That's
wheels.
your rap
My
scratch.
rap scratch.
Yeah, one hand.
Sorry. This is white woman doing the rap scratch.
You just ruined the record. You're scratching it. What are you doing?
Okay. I'm squeaky.
Yeah.
I need to grease that wheel.
That's your rap name. Squeaky girl. Oh my god.
What I was gonna say is, I remember the table is wobbly. Is submission. If you're listening to this, you're automatically submitting just by choosing to listen.
Yeah.
You are
wherever you take your brain, you're submitting your brain to what's going on in that environment. So that's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So submission is not a bad thing. We need, and I'm saying
we do it every day.
We do it every day without knowing.
Stop signs.
Hierarchy is not innately a bad thing. It's how we utilize the energy, the power, the situation.
Do you stop at a four-way stop at 2 a.m. when there's no one else there? You're a submissive person. Because I don't.
So I didn't mean to necessarily say once I submitted to you, you could submit to me, but I think that's very true. And I think the car analogy...
That's totally true.
Well, I think the car analogy really paints a clearer picture that if someone is in the driver's seat, you've acknowledged that you're going to be in the passenger seat or in the back seat, wherever you are, that you are innately submitting. And if you are resisting that, and the more you might be talking too much, the backseat driver, as they say, or you might be like literally, people get in fights in the car, you are not.
Yeah, some people punch the driver.
Yeah.
That's not good.
you not only put yourselves at risk, but you're definitely not going to help get to your destination.
Right.
So I think that's really an excellent analogy. And what I've seen in the years since, or maybe it's 6 months, you said, since you've submitted to me, is in the passenger seat, it's like, Tara, do you have to go to the bathroom? Tara, would you like to get something to eat? Would you like to? Here's a scenic byway. Would
Do you
you
need
like
to
to go
stop?
this way?
You need to stop for a restroom. There's a cool coffee shop coming up.
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
Right.
I'm like, hey, I found this little farm to table restaurant. Would you like to go there? And I describe the menu to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm totally submissive.
You will maybe alter your driving a bit if it's kind of a little too much at times.
Do I alter my driving with suggestion from you?
Nowadays not so much.
Okay.
I think you do it more
Well,
automatically, and I've gotten accustomed to it.
When we're out motorcycling, you always try to stop me from wheeling.
Man, was I crazy? Like, what the heck? What was I thinking? Let's change that program. Yeah. Well, you did teach me to just kind of like squeeze you, or
Yeah,
squeeze
just
you
hang on.
twice.
Yeah.
Hang
on tight, because if we go over backwards, I need a cushion.
No.
No, I was the last person that wanted to crash. So, and I only rode. I didn't do crazy wheelies. I rode within my capabilities.
But I didn't
always.
I hadn't grown up riding motorcycle, and
Yeah.
so I didn't have that feeling within my body of, oh,
How
this
far
is
is
okay.
too far? Yeah.
Or he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's different when your brain thinks. This is a perfect analogy for just like life and marriage, and when you are in business together as well, because it's the same thing in business. I hadn't been in business the years that you had previously, and so when you were investing thousands of dollars, that felt so scary. That was the equivalent of doing a wheelie.
Thousands?
Thousands.
Millions. Oh, you don't want to tell everybody? Yes, I've made and lost millions. And made and lost and made, and you're always on the way up, right? There's nothing like loss as a teacher. There's nothing like disappointment. I'll say it this way. There's nothing like financial collapse. There's nothing like heartbreak. And there's one other that I was thinking of the other day. Probably just general loss. All three of them are loss. But there's nothing like loss as a teacher.
Well, it will definitely emphasize the teaching, but as you also said to me the other day, to learn in business while you're making money, that's the way to go.
And that's the most difficult thing to do, because usually when people are making a lot of money, they sit back, get comfortable. You're not hardening, right? So if you go out and you get in a fight as a guy and you punch somebody, and the first time you punch them they get knocked out, you're gonna think you're cool, and you're gonna think the next time you go out and punch someone they're gonna get knocked out. So you're probably not going to train. You're probably not going to make yourself strong. You're probably not going to harden your knuckles, your joints, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next person you punch, they don't get knocked out. Yeah. And then they kick your butt, mm-hmm. right? And now you learned that not everybody gets knocked out on the first punch.
I think it equates to what you said, too, about the girls who grow up as the pretty girls.
They don't develop good personalities.
Don't develop the good personalities. So
yeah, but you can. If you're a pretty girl and you've always had doors open for you, you can make yourself better. You can develop your personality.
You just have to be more aware.
Well, there's literal classes out there, and you can ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing that is not good for other people that I just get to do because of the aesthetic of my look? Mm-hmm. That would be a very important question for a pretty girl to ask herself. So,
Jon, how do you see that you've finally submitted in the last 6 months, or maybe 3 months, because you said it takes 22 and a half years?
It's happened every day of our relationship.
Yeah.
Yes. The initial submission that a guy goes through is not violating the relationship, not sleeping with another woman, not even entertaining getting intimate with another woman. Because intimacy, if I was sitting here with, if you, let's ask it this way. 2 scenarios happen at the same time. I'm standing behind some chick doing it, right? You walk in, I'm in a room, I'm not in a bed, I'm not comfortable, it's not a romantic situation. I'm standing somewhere. It's almost laughable, but I'm having
It's like the Burger King bathroom.
I'm having sex, yeah, Humpty. I'm having sex with somebody else, right?
Okay.
Or you find out that I was sitting here having coffee with a woman for 2 hours and you didn't know about that. You drove by and you saw me sitting here. Which one is more offensive? And
Well,
you have to pick one.
I have to pick one.
You have to pick one because I got to know which one I can do. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. See how I get hyped? That submission, right? And it worked. You can't say neither, but or describe both. Describe both.
I imagine you're thinking that I'm going to say, sitting here at coffee or talking. Right?
I don't know which one you're gonna say.
Well, I imagine that that's the one that, because you're implying that applies forethought.
It's a level of intimacy. It's a level of
intimacy.
It's a level of process that now you're wondering. Both situations, you're going to wonder, how many times does this happen? Does he do this all the time?
Honestly, I would say the physical act.
Okay.
Okay, Nux, get Nux for that.
Just calling up my peeps. Come on down for coffee, bitches. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, for some reason, for me, the physical level, even if it's just a hookup, and this is, before we met too, I was not a hookup person. Even though the hookup culture wasn't really a thing yet, although I went to Brazil and it really was, it was starting to become that way. That is to me really intimate. You sharing your body and your energy.
Yep.
Now you can share your energy when you're talking as well, but to me, the physical is that nth degree.
Yeah, I agree. Although you don't want, well, you're probably going there. I can't imagine the woman other than your mom or my grandma that you would sit with for 2 hours and have a conversation. Because I can't either. I can't either.
Yeah. Well, it might be even just at the stage of our relationship too, although I think the physical, it would be the same answer pretty much all the way along. Where was I going?
The answer.
Is the answer. Yeah, keep going. So how else? It just went out.
Okay. Well, I got my answer.
Thank you. So you've submitted to me early on by essentially committing to me in our relationship.
We started with our relationship. We started with submission to the relationship. And that's what these guys are not doing. These women think sex is a relationship, and it's not. It is not a relationship. Sex is a physical act for men. And these guys are telling you, they're saying things like men throughout history have had multiple women, multiple wives, this and that. I look back in history and I say, what happened to queens that did not submit?
They got beheaded.
If you don't submit to the king can't be a king and make you a queen. And a lot of women say they're a queen. They want to be the queen. Well, you have to find a king and you have to submit. If the language is submissive, right? The queen, now we see Queen Elizabeth, who doesn't, have a king, right? That I think that's a social experiment. There is no king, right? There used to be kings of England, but
I think that's it's a technicality because she's the blood heiress.
Sure, but I think it's a sociological experiment also.
Yeah.
Because
it could just be timing.
I mean, she's like 400 years old.
Something like that. But also her grandchildren, the two, Henry and what's her name, who are not submitting to the queen, I don't remember if they were outcast or if they also just chose to not live in the country.
I don't know if they officially got disowned, but yeah, I don't follow. We
don't follow that.
We kicked their butts a long time ago, so we don't need to submit to them. But the submission, it's in the language, right? If a woman says I want to be a queen, that denotes a king, right? I mean, who are you being a queen of? Yourself? I'm a queen of myself. I say I want my castle, my home, to be peaceful, right? I want I want my lands peaceful and prosperous. I don't want war in my lands, right? And so, it's just me and you. We're empty nesters already, and it's just me and you. So it's like, uh, who's in my lands? You. And two cats, but you know, it's peaceful until 2 a.m., right? And so women want to be able to submit, and they don't need a powerful man. They don't need, some women do. Women need a powerful man, but they need a man that has just got a plan. They need a man that is directed in his goals. They need a man who is taking care of things, not everything. Not every guy takes care of everything, and I don't take care of everything. We're a business partnership in our marriage, and we treat it that way. We look at it that way, that we both need to prosper. It's not just me telling you what to do. We both need to prosper. Our relationship to grow, our emotional maturity needs to grow, our mental maturity, our understanding of life, the way we disperse ourselves in the world. It's like a business.
Mm-hmm.
You can't give out all your energy to people that want it, right? You have, at some point, you cut it off. I've watched you do it. You've watched me do it. At some point you go, yeah, this isn't working for me. I got to have boundaries. And then you go, oh, I got boundaries for you. It's right here. I get in there, and you get in here, and we got to get into each other's minds and each other's emotions and brains and or not brains, but yeah, brains, but hearts, and that's usually where it starts. So that's how I submitted to you early on, was to be loyal to the relationship.
Okay, so it's kind of falling under category number 1, submitting to the relationship.
That's all it is.
So what I've seen since is, okay, let's go back to the ring analogy and
Yep.
actual scenario. So I was half joking and half serious about the whole scenario of if I had to date these men or accept a proposal of marriage. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of where it's going, is men and women, young men and young women, are trying to kind of one-upping each other, and you can hear it in these conversations as well. And I'm not knocking you. I think you're doing, I love hearing what's on your mind.
Other people's minds.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, let's say at least 75% of it is good. There are foundational concepts, the men and the women, that are saying, I want this. There has to be this kind of commitment, submission.
Mm-hmm.
We've just had a few more years in the game, and what I hear is leveraging. There's just continual leveraging, that I have to have it this way, and then the natural reaction, for the most part, is, well, then I have to have it this way. Well, then I have to have it this way, and then you're setting up for just such strife, and just continually leveraging, rolling through the different points of submission.
What I tell ladies, primarily through you, is that you should not have an idea of what you want. You should be grateful for what you get. And then it can develop, right? Because when we met, I didn't have much. I had a truck, I lived in an apartment, I had a martial arts school.
You had a cat.
I had a cat, but I wasn't giving you $100 a day to go spend, or $1,000 a week, or $10,000 a month. We were living off of literally $50 a week for groceries, and
it's not because of inflation that it seems like.
So you worked, I worked. We were both bringing in money. You had 2 jobs.
Yeah.
When I met you, had 3. And
22 years ago, I was making $25 an hour. That was really good then.
Bam.
Yeah, you got yourself a sugar mama all the way.
Sugar mama. Yeah. Woo. So, but I had my school, and at a certain point, I closed that down and started up another business because I wanted to make more money. And so I flowed and made decisions. I didn't say, well, this is the life and I got to do this no matter what. I had made more money before I was involved in martial arts, and knew that I could make more money. So I just went back to making more money.
So
that was submitting to our relationship also. It wasn't me being selfish, saying my persona is this big bad martial art instructor guy, this big bad martial artist,
Well, you were literally doing your dream. That was your dream career choice. So you're essentially saying the way, there are some happenstances too with your business partner and stuff, but you
Well, my dream was to be in a great relationship. My dream job, what I wanted to do for a living, was to be a martial arts instructor. And I was, and I still am. I can, I do private lessons, that kind of stuff. I'm just not making that my focus of how I make money. So
we just make martial arts analogies in our
we do.
talks.
Well, we
Yeah.
train.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were training sword the other day.
Yeah.
I saw you.
You love it when I train my sword.
Well, show your knuckles. You were on the speed bag
Well,
the
that
other
was-
day, and you were rubbing too much.
Yeah, well, I haven't been on the speed bag in a while, so.
Yeah, so you don't want to scrape it. You want to hit it, and you go down when it goes forward. Yeah, instead of scraping it with your knuckles. Yeah, usually you use this part of your hand, not your knuckles. So
Well, get better. So
training wounds. Yeah.
what I was getting at, I think for the time that I was on the speed bag, it's not too bad.
It's bad. That's bad.
Okay.
Yeah. There should be
I
no
did-
marks on your hands when you're done with the speed bag.
Okay. Well, given the circumstance, anyways,
Maybe you were aggressive. You were
I was
being
really
you're
aggressive.
being aggressive.
I did.
Were you blowing off steam? Is that what's going on?
I was loosening up energy to make sure it wasn't all caught up in here, which I
Nice.
tend to do,
Nice.
but not anymore. So going back to the ring, I was half joking, half serious when I was talking about these young guys, and if I was a young woman, but really just kind of pointing out the absurdity of the situation, that I'm going to karate chop that situation.
Evidently.
That because it's just continual leveraging. And so if we go back to the car analogy, it would be like he's driving, maybe you're kind of submitting that he's driving, and you're like, I want to go here, and he's like, well, after I go here, and then, well, only if we go here, go right, no, go.
You're like,
take
I
this
want to go
route.
to Macy's or I want to go to Gucci, and I'm like, we're got to go to the auto parts store first.
or the bank, So it's not really setting up for a great foundational relationship.
Right.
But 20 some years later, I bet if I really, really wanted an amazing ring, like an extra amazing, I have a great, beautiful ring.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, you'd probably be like, this is not really necessary. This is ridiculous to spend. But if it was like really a thing, I believe you would make it happen.
I would ask you, what's wrong with you? If you said, I want a $67,000 ring, I would go,
Just 66.
what is wrong with you?
Just 66.
Oh, good.
Yeah. My point is, whether it's a ring or not,
Yeah.
is that when you get to that point in a relationship, and it doesn't have to take 20 some years, you can settle this early.
Well, here's
which
the
I
thing.
think is what these other programs, they're trying to hash it out.
Let's just be honest. You weren't a pretty girl in high school.
I wasn't terrible looking. I was average. Well, I can't rate it.
We're talking about the girls that don't develop personalities
Mm-hmm.
because they're so very pretty.
Oh yeah, I wasn't
growing
that
up.
girl.
No,
I wasn't
that's
girl.
all I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay. So pretty is a 8 through a 10,
Not by Kevin's standards. Kevin says 6 is a pretty. Yeah, I think
Okay.
6 is a pretty.
Okay, so but you weren't in pretty range. I'm just I've
That's
seen the
fine.
pictures.
It's fine.
I'm just saying, okay?
I mean, Brazil I was, but that's all.
But you
it's
were
a
older.
different.
You were a little older then too.
I was 17.
Yeah.
16,
So
17.
okay.
No, I was not the pretty girl.
So
Let's say.
you are not in a group of women that are after status. Hence, you don't need a gaudy diamond ring.
I don't. Well,
You're not.
need is a.
No, but I'm saying
Yeah.
you don't need
not a
that
part of
to
my
show.
persona.
No, you're not sitting in a group of statusy women that always have to get a new house every 5 years and a new vehicle all the time, and it's got to be a white Lexus, or then it's got to be a Maserati, all these types of things, right? you're not because you're not trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? You don't play those games. So that's a quality woman. Okay. In my mind, that's a quality woman. And, a lot of these women get cosmetic stuff done to be seen as younger, more vivacious, more whatever. And
I'm just the one that sounds like the grandma, but doesn't look like the grandma.
They're severely lacking in personality and content.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I said before, most of these guys don't have the depth to sustain. That's why they got to jump from woman to woman to woman. What we probably should do a podcast on next time or sometime is how good a relationship gets when you get past the points where other people go, I'm still married to the same person. I'm still, guys say it a lot more vulgarly than women do. The same, and it's like
ball and chain.
Yeah, the ball and chain.
Yeah.
But people that don't make it to those points don't realize how good it gets. They don't realize that everything gets better. Everything from conversations to sex. When you've only shared your energy with another person that is continuing to grow with you. You're both growing together. One get a little bit ahead, the other one will catch up. The other one will get a little bit ahead, the other one will catch up. That kind of in different areas. And when you look at life that way and you're figuring it out and you're working on things and you're appreciating each other. One thing I teach my employees is the longer you work with someone, the better that company should be, the better that company should benefit from you, because you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, and if you play on their strengths, you benefit. Absolutely. If you raise a coworker up, the company makes more money, and then you get bigger bonuses, and people go, that's never happened. Well, has it happened? I mean, if you're doing it consistently, you need to set, what was it? I read this in my dad's notebook. My dad's retired now, and I keep finding his old stuff in his old toolboxes and stuff. And my dad is a man of few words, like yes, no, and that's stupid. Good job will come out if it's truly a good job will come out, and he will come up next to you and he'll look at what you're doing and he'll say good job, and he'll turn around and walk away. He doesn't even wait for you to say thank you. That's how he was when I was working under him, when he was in the shop and when he was apprenticing people and mentoring people. And I found a notebook, and it said there was two things in there. One of them was be the example. And the other one was teach. It was just straight up teach. Be the example and teach. That was it. That's the only thing I've ever seen my dad write that has to do with other people, personality, any kind of expression.
Yeah.
That's otherwise everything that was written down might have been instructions, or the right way to do trigonometry, or the right way to do GD&T, which is geometric dimensioning and tolerancing in my trade. That it was all technical. Everything was technical. But he wrote a note to himself in his notebook: be the example, and then the next line said teach. And that blew my mind.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. I have that notebook. That's going to get framed. I'm like, hey, wow, he was actually talking to himself.
Yeah.
And you can't get that out of him. If you say, hey, what have you thought about your career? And he's like, well, I did it. And you're like, well, what did you think about it? He's like, well, I did a lot of difficult things. No, but what did you think about it? I mean, my dad is the reason everybody has a computer in their house. People think it might be Steve Jobs, or it might be Bill Gates, or it might be Steve Wozniak, or it might be other people. No, it was my dad, because I'm going to tell this story real quick. I learned submission from my dad, and I learned empathy from my dad, even though he was a man of few words. So my dad got hired by the company that was making the physical suspensions that go in the disk drives in computers. And the computer industry was having a massive problem because those parts are so small and so fine that they were having a lot of scrap in the production process. And so they hired my dad. They brought him in. He was well known as a die maker, a progressive die maker. And a progressive die is, if you think of, I got this little bag sitting here. If you think of a bag being folded, the bag has three folds in it, so it doesn't get folded in one fell swoop. It doesn't go like that, right? I mean, it might, but it's a progression. 1, 2. That's a progression, right? This Yeti mug, this outside yellow part gets stamped. It starts out as a flat round piece of metal, and then a big plug comes into a hole that has these shapes, and it's boom, it stamps it, and it comes out, and then it ejects it, and now you've got the outside part of the cup here, and then they put the bottom on and the insert in, and do whatever they do to seal it and fasten it. And so it's a progressive die that would make that. My dad was famous for progressive dies.
So it has multiple shapes, so you have to start with one press, and then it presses it again in another form die to
one
make
shape
a
here,
shape.
the next shape here, maybe a bend here, maybe a hole here, maybe a cut here,
to make a more complex.
And then at the end, you have your part. You have your metal sunglasses frame. You have your bicycle. You have your frame or a wheel, a rim for a tire. You have whatever, spokes, that type of stuff. Those are probably turned, but anyway, he shut everything down in the company, and he said, "Okay, we're going to start with station 1. Step number 1. This is where we're going to. So we got all this production line set up here, and we're going to start with station number 1, and we're not going to go to 2 until this is working." So I heard these stories growing up. I watched, when I was 2.5 years old. There's a picture of me sitting on the wheel well, inside on the inside of the fender, inside the engine compartment, watching my dad take an engine apart. You take the air cleaner off. You take you got it's one thing at a time. Then you can take the rim for the air cleaner, the flange mount, and then you can take the carburetor, but you got to unhook all the hoses, and then you can get to the intake manifold, and then you can pull off the heads, and you take the valves off, and then the heads, and then all these things, or you might take the whole valve cover off with the valves. So there's all these steps and progressions. I learned watching this silent man do stuff. This is so important that parents allow their kids to do things, not just on the phone, because your kid is going to want to do archery, and they're going to download an archery game, and they're going to play archery on their phone, and they're never going to go out and physically do archery. I started doing archery when I found my grandpa's recurve bow in a storage in the garage, and I got in trouble for taking it out and using it.
Of course,
because I put all the arrows into soft trees. And that damages an arrow. It can damage an arrow.
Yeah.
And because when you pull them out, sometimes the tip will get stuck and things like that. And I shot them at some hard trees, like some oaks, and they weren't going in. So then I went and found the soft trees and shot them in the soft trees.
And you've also found out the difference between hard and soft trees.
Right, like the young basswoods. And it stuck, and I think I was like 9 years old. I could barely pull the bow back. I was pretty strong, but I got in trouble for not asking, and that was my grandpa. He said I would have said yes, but you didn't ask. So I was also taught the benefit of being open, requesting things, being honest about things, and that type of thing. So, these submission lessons are throughout life, right? It's not only about competition. It's not only about winning. It's not only about winning knucks, right? It's about parents being there for their kids, showing them the progression of things, not giving the kids too many options, but letting them make choices and then living with the ramifications of their choices. This would go so far to helping our society and correcting our society. And then submitting. Kids don't submit because there's not a lot of discipline anymore. And there was a lot of discipline. I was seriously rambunctious, relatively problematic.
Well, you also have to see it to be able to model it. So if it's not happening in the relationship, the kids don't know how to properly model it as well.
Right. And so when you have two parents And you grew up this way. Your parents are bad mouthing each other to the kids. That was a really bad way to understand relationships. Then it's just a dominance hierarchy where people are trying to get one up on each other and using their children to do it. So
Again, the leveraging analogy just keeps escalating.
yeah,
Well, with so you said you also learned empathy from your dad. I don't know if you just wanted to name that or get into that. Seems like it was important.
it's going to sound weird. There were times when my dad talked to me when he could see, when he was going to spank me, and then he would just tell me, "Are you going to do that?" This is my dad talking to me. Your mom said you did this. Get to your room. I knew what was coming, right?
Yeah.
I was already preparing. I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt. My butt's going to be sore. And so then he would come in the room and he might say, I might just straight up get a spanking, roll over, bam, bam, spanking on my butt, right? Hand. And then I never got a belt. I was thankful for that. I had friends that got belts. So, but he would say, sometimes he would shut the door and he would say, "Are you going to do that again?" And I'd be like, "No." And I'd still get a spanking. And then I learned, if he asked me, "Are you going to do that again?" Don't think about it, just say no. And then I wouldn't get a spanking. So he was he was empathizing with the fact that I didn't want to get a spanking, and I knew he could tell that I was tricky enough to try and trick him.
Yeah.
But he would give it to me. Like, I wouldn't get the spanking if I answered with the correct answer immediately. Even though I might have gone and done it again, but then if I went and did it, I got twice the spanking. I might get 4 spots, right? Mm-hmm. And so then I learned that too, right? And so he was teaching me those things along the way, maybe not consciously thinking he's teaching me, but maybe consciously thinking, okay, he needs to learn certain things, but maybe he wasn't trying to teach me empathy, but he was trying to teach me, the correct thing to say in a situation. And not, you could say manipulation, but not necessarily being manipulative, but I had a chance to make that an honest statement, right? I say, no, I won't do it again. But then I had a chance. Okay, I already realized that if I did it again, I was going to end up in that situation in the bedroom getting a swat, right? So I had a choice when, okay, I want to do that and have the consequences of getting caught and getting a spanking. Or, well, he didn't spank me last time and I did say no. And now I have a philosophical, moral conundrum. How am I gonna make a decision as a boy, right? Mm-hmm. Which then turns into young man, and you mature properly when you do that kind of thing.
It just occurred to me, and the whole argument of whether spanking is right or wrong aside, mm-hmm. I think personally, I was spanked as a child, not too often, but I think appropriately. Let's just say. And by appropriate, I mean that it was in the right situations for, to properly teach. It was only with a hand, not with a tool, and definitely not a belt. And what was interesting, what just occurred to me is majority of the time, it was the same scenario, that go to your room. If it was really bad, there might have been a few times where it might have been on the spot, and that would have been really bad.
That happens when something's dangerous. With men, that'll happen with kids if they're doing something dangerous. It'll just be a reaction. They'll grab them, get them out of the way, swat them, and go. You cannot do that.
Yeah. So I was just kind of reverse engineering kind of that psychology of that, because that when it's on the spot, would be appropriate, in my opinion, if it's a dangerous situation. Let's just say discipline. Let's just say disciplining on the spot. But if it's something, a behavior, and you can reason with a child in particular and say, do you remember what you did, or your mother said you did this, go to your room, which as a child, that is a symbol of you. It's a greater space that also symbolizes your space.
Get back to yourself.
Get back to yourself?
Yeah, you just did something that is not something you should do. Now get
Go-
back to your.
and
That's
go
interesting.
think, go
That's
think about it.
I like that.
I'm not done.
Whoa,
Hang on.
it gets better.
Grandma's got more to say. I'm not going to continue using that. It's Auntie Tara.
I love that. You know, it's going to be clips all over the internet now.
Is this? I think it's inappropriate to do it outside of the room when it's in front of other people, and it's not to protect the child from doing something. You're not disciplining them to protect them from doing that.
It's a virtue signal on the parent's part to say, I discipline my kid.
Or it's
I'm
purely
dominant.
embarrassing for the child, that along with that, they might not even really remember the lesson because they're embarrassed so much, or maybe they'll confuse the lesson. I guess is what I'm getting at. And this is just totally impromptu. It occurred to me as each scenario has been, I was sent to my room. You know, we probably both had a few instances where we weren't sent to our room, but it was, you know, I think if good parenting is you are clear on the intent,
right?
Whatever your form of discipline, and I certainly think that there is going too far. You said 2 spanks, or when you did it again and your dad knew that you had already said you wouldn't do it, then you got 4.
Yeah, well, I think the first swat was always for distance and timing. It was how hard am I going to go? The first one, bam. Second one, bam. You know,
gauging.
Yeah, I think so.
So what would you say are some takeaways? We kind of went off in a few different directions as far as submitting to.
Well, it has so much to do with other things in life. You know, it has so much to do to focus on a topic and to make it such a singular issue based upon, well, let's say men submitting to women, and me going, well, yeah, why would I submit to you? You know, that's what the 30-year-old does, right? That's what the 25-year-old does. Yeah, they're like, you know, they think they're going to lose something. They think they're going to lose their position because they're inexperienced. You know, and if you've been in a relationship, let's say you've been in a decent relationship, and then you broke up with that girl because you wanted opportunities in other directions, and then you were in a terrible relationship, and then you learn perspective, and you learn it's not the same. Not every woman is the same. A lot of these podcasts are talking statistics. Men do this, women do this, men think this way, women think this way, men act this way, women act this way. And it's like, holy crap, you know, who are you guys talking to? You're so inexperienced, because I can't sit here and go, men are like this and women are like that, because I know so many people and they're all so different, you know. It's kind of like, you know, we're all human. We all put on our pants one leg at a time, and we need to figure out, you know, what's best for the environment, what's best for the community, and then, you know, the family, community, society, and then we each need to only just do our best. You know, we can't be trying to make other people do their best. We can't be trying to govern what is the best. We can't legislate the best. We only legislate for the lowest common denominators. There's only laws for people who break laws, right? Who do enough bad things that we need a law for it, right? You can't murder. I mean, that's a law as old as time, right? That's in the 10 Commandments. So, you know, murdering is bad. Well, do we really need a law? Does it really need to be said, you know, that taking somebody's life, taking that person out of their family, taking that person out of their life, taking them out of the society, does it really need to be said? That's a bad thing. I don't think it needs to be said, but evidently there are people that need that said to them. And so I think that if you're qualifying men as something and women as something, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
What do you mean something?
Well, men are a conglomeration of things, right? And women are a conglomeration of things, and they're definitely different, but they're very much the same. You know, we all 10 fingers, toes, 2 eyes, nose, you know.
I mean, if you're generalizing, saying
you're missing some important parts, but I like your parts.
I'm glad I'm missing those. I can practice my sword work when I want to take it out. So you're saying, like, when it's it's not helpful when people are generalizing and in these ways.
I honestly don't think a lot of the scientific data is helpful. I think the anecdotal data, the observational data, the historical timeline data is way more important than a scientific finding. You know, human beings lived non modern scientifically for millions of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, even if we go with the fundamental Christians of 6,000 years, I mean, that's a long time too. And now it's like, oh, we need to change everything because we have this data, you know, and that, I think that's foolish. And it's foolish to be just sitting back reciting data, trying to get one up over on somebody else, right? It's like, I have knowledge you don't have, haha, you know, and I'm going to teach you by insulting you and embarrassing you, right? Like you said, you don't want to do that to a kid. Well, you don't want to do that to somebody that doesn't understand. You want to say, this is something I read. What do you think about that? You don't want to go, well, the data proves you wrong. And here, I'm going to read it.
Yeah,
You know?
you're kind so can I share another epiphany while you were talking when something was coming together? Is
Down with your epiphanies.
I think we have really evolved as a society, and we're at a point where we no longer need to have it, woman, get in line, because for so many years, we as a society have lived in dangerous situations where there needed to be hierarchy. There needed to be, hey, I need you to listen, and just don't question what I'm saying, and just in a pure hierarchical, in a community kind of sense. I mean, until very recently. Nowadays, almost anyone can survive in modern day. Let's just say first world, can easily survive, right?
Yeah, you never have to leave your house.
Basically. And so survival is not so much an issue, is thriving is the issue. And so I think that the hierarchy, and then particularly men classically being at the top of the hierarchy, was more of a survival mechanism because women are typically smaller, not as strong. And so it was just a matter of survival, and it was just practicality. And so here's an analogy, or here's an instance. So, and this is so practical. It happens today still, where I was listening to either it was a clip or an actual show by Joe Rogan, and it was he was talking about before he and his family moved out of Los Angeles that 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 they went to a donut shop. He said it was just kind of a Sunday thing. It was just like something they had done on occasion, but hadn't done in a long time.
Yep.
And it was just, oh, let's just go get donuts at this famous place. And he hadn't realized, he hadn't been down there in a long time. Like it was full of homeless people. And then so they're walking along the street, and he's like, okay, everybody, stick close to me. And if anyone talks to you or comes close to you, come closer to me.
Yeah.
It's natural in a family. And he's essentially saying, submit to me. I'm bigger, stronger. I'll protect you. I'm deciding that we're still going to go in this direction.
Right.
I think it's still okay, but I need you to submit to me so I can keep you safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the beauty of this structure is overlooked by people being insulted and over emotional, that it has a purpose. And you also have a choice. And just realizing that, as I've submitted to you, you have also submitted to me in very different ways, but complementary ways. So, like Joe's family, if they chose to submit to him, they would get the benefit of being protected, or at least feeling protected.
In 22 years, we've never had the conversation about submission.
Oh, I think we
didn't use those terms. We didn't use those terms.
Right.
When I said you don't fit in my pants, when you were trying to wear all my pants at the same time, I said my britches are too big for you, girl.
Yeah.
That was me saying, hey, there doesn't have to be this domineering position from you.
Or the struggle and strife that results as well.
But I wasn't being domineering. I was saying there's a way for us to work together, where you were trying to be a boss.
Yep. You had a very adult, caring conversation with me. Brought it up in a very, instead of saying, biatch, this is how
Bitch,
it's going to be.
please.
You're like, I love you. I want to be with you. This is what I'm noticing. In my past experience, this has not worked. And I know that I won't live this way.
Right.
And that was a very mature way, even though you were just 30 and you're still, like, yeah, full of it. You had a very mature approach, which I appreciate, which I know has
We should talk
benefited us.
about that because you took that very well
Which
when I was 30. Everything that went along with it.
those types of
The
conversations.
daily lovemaking sessions.
Okay, well,
you took
this-
everything very well,
Okay, well, I'll write that down.
even though you were like a weekly person and I was a daily person.
Well, I'll write that for notes for next time. I have a couple additional show ideas.
Yeah.
Um, I have to go potty, and
Oh,
so
now
I'm
you're
trying,
British all of a
I'm
sudden.
trying to get kind of a summary.
Okay.
As well.
We don't could summarize as the plane goes over. This has been our attempt at discussing the husband submitting to the woman. A man does not have to submit to a woman unless they're married. I'll just say that there is no reason for anybody to submit to anybody unless you have that deeper commitment, that deeper relationship, that reason for being in submission, that reason for understanding the greater context of the commitment of the relationship. That's what it's for. It's not because I'm choosing where we're going for dinner tonight. That's not it. Or
I actually love it when you choose. You
Right.
always pick great places.
right,
Yeah.
whereas you might be a little more frugal. I'm not,
Or at least,
especially when it comes to food. So yeah, that's kind of the synopsis.
so what I heard as a synopsis, it just kind of came up again, is that when I was able to submit to you, and at different stages, you were then able to. Do you think that it has to be in that order?
Well, I was submitting to our relationship the whole time. I was saying, in order to be in a relationship, this is how we need to function. And I was not overtly bossing like you were bossing, like, I can't, well, I don't want to get back into it, but you were more like, we need to do things this way. And I was like, well, this is how it'll work if we do that. And if we do this is how it'll work. And here's how, and then you were like, oh, like you needed a new perspective shown to you. You needed a different scenario talked about. That's all you needed. And that's what I think everybody needs, because people only know what they know. And usually they only know what they've been taught. Usually it's really sad how little people know and how little they've been taught. It's very sad when I run into it. I'm like, oh, wow, that's all you know? And you think that's it. You know? Like you punch somebody once and they got knocked out, and you think that happens every time. Oh, no. Be careful. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So, it's a person opening of the perspective, taking the blinders off, opening the paradigm, all these different types of ways. This is how a real man talks to a woman. This is how a real man, especially if he wants a relationship with her. If he just wants to domineer her, he's going to be like, bitch, I need other bitches. I need other women to have sex with.
Yeah.
They be blowing up my phone. What am I going to do? Change your number, dumbass. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, because you're going to get what you're going to get there too. As a guy who's giving all of this metaphysical, spiritual energy to all these women, you're going to become less as you do that. And we can get into that in another podcast. So
it sounds like you understood fairly early on that I was just using an approach. My bossy pants was just an approach because I was young and that's all I really knew. And that I was open enough to hear your perspective.
And that was the illustrative metaphor. Listen, little Miss Bossy Pants, you don't fit in my jeans. You're coming out of a scenario where things happen a certain way and you think that's how the world works, and that's not. I'm going to work every day. I'm doing things on every Saturday and Sunday. I'm building a business. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I need you to be in a certain role, a supportive role, and it'll be a beneficial role for you. All that kind of stuff. So yeah. Be a real man. Explain things from a different perspective, and wait for your woman to understand it. If you push her into it, making a decision, ultimately she's going to back off of it because it's not her idea to make that decision. And so you need to explain it in a way she can understand. Hence, you need to understand your woman. You need to speak the language, not just the man language, not just the bully language or the overt strong language.
Seek to understand, not just to be understood.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go.
It's a good one.
Bam. Peace out.
Nice. That's a
Gotcha.
good stuff.